My name was James, and freshman year I learned the hard way that Random Roommate was a psychological experiment run by a very bored god. I'd filled out my housing form like it was a dating profile. Me, social, outgoing, love meeting new people, early-ish riser, clean enough. Kyle showed up on move-in day with a black duffel bag and a gaming PC. He didn't shake my hand so much as offer it like evidence. "Hey," I said, overcompensating immediately. "I'm James. What's up, man?" "Kyle." "Cool. Kyle. Nice. You game?" "Yeah." "Same. I mean, I'm more of a FIFA with the boys guy, but Kyle already had his monitor on. The LED lights pulsed a cold, aquatic blue. He started untangling cables. I told myself it was fine. Different personalities could work. I'd be the extrovert, he'd be the quiet guy. We'd balance each other out. Like those buddy cop movies where one cop is reckless and charming, and the other one doesn't speak, but somehow saves the day. By week 2, I realized that Kyle wasn't the silent partner I thought he would be. I had friends in and out constantly. People from my floor, guys from my econ lecture, girls from the dining hall that I'd met 2 hours prior and now considered close friends. I wasn't trying to be a douchebag. I just liked people. The first time Kyle asked me to keep it down, I thought he was joking. It was a Thursday night. Someone had brought a cheap speaker and an even cheaper bottle of rum. I was half in the hallway, half in our room, narrating something loud and stupid. Kyle spun in his chair and said, very calmly, "Can you not?" "Can I not what?" He gestured at the room, at the hallway, at my entire personality. "This?" "Oh, it's like 11. I have class at 8. "So do I," I said, even though my 8 a.m. was a myth I'd told myself. "We'll be done soon." Kyle's jaw tightened. "You said that yesterday." My friend Parker laughed. "Damn, roommate beef already." Kyle didn't laugh. He just put his headphones on and faced his screen like it was a shield. The bigger problem, though, wasn't my noise. It was time. I liked waking up at 9 or 10, going to the gym, grabbing coffee, pretending I was an adult. On weekdays, I aimed to be asleep by 1 a.m. because I liked believing my life was under control. Kyle's life started at midnight. He played Minecraft all the time. I'd fall asleep to the soft clacking of keys and the occasional click, click, click of a mouse like a tiny metronome counting down my sanity. At first, it didn't bother me. College dorms were noisy. That was the deal. What bothered me was the hypocrisy. Kyle could build digital castles until 4 in the morning, but if my alarm chirped at 9:15, he acted crazy. Now, the first time it happened, I was half asleep and trying to be considerate. My phone buzzed. I reached for it, fumbling. The sound went on for maybe 3 seconds. Kyle bolted upright like a vampire who would smell daylight. "Dude, turn that off!" My alarm? "Yes! It's 9. And I'm sleeping," he said, like I was supposed to salute. I sat up, feeling my own temper spark. "You were up until 4. So? My so is I also have to live here." "Then don't set it that loud." "It's not loud. It's literally a phone." Kyle turned over and yanked a pillow over his head like the conversation had been a pop-up ad. I tried to let it go because, well, being the loud guy on a dorm floor came with a certain responsibility not to become the villain in your own story. But then the other thing started happening. Around 5 a.m., not every night, but most nights, I'd hear Kyle make this chewing sound. Like wet, slow chewing. Then he'd mumble something under his breath. Words thick and garbled like he was half underwater. It was creepy in that way that normal human things could be creepy at 3 a.m. Like hearing your fridge click on in an empty house. Now I told myself, sleep talking, sleep apnea, whatever. People snored. People made noises. Kyle was a human being with a body. Still, once you heard something every night, it stopped being background. One morning, I couldn't help it. "Kyle," I said while he was brushing his teeth in our tiny sink, "do you, sleep talk?" He spat, wiped his mouth, and stared at me like I'd asked his bank balance. "No? I swear you do. At 5 a.m, you make this chewing noise and then you mumble." Kyle's cheeks flushed. Angry or embarrassed? "No, I don't. I'm not trying to roast you. It's just..." Kyle shoved his toothbrush back into his caddy. "Stop watching me sleep, man. That's weird. I'm not watching you sleep. I'm trying to sleep. You're loud." Kyle turned away, like the conversation had been deleted. Now, I should have taken that as a warning sign. Kyle didn't do vulnerability. Kyle did denial. The shift happened after midterms, when Kyle discovered horror games. Minecraft faded. Suddenly, I'd come in late and see him wearing headphones, lights off, face lit up by a screen that looked like a nightmare. He started with Phasmophobia, which was honestly kind of fun to watch. He'd creep through abandoned houses, whispering into his mic like a guy in a ghost documentary. "You're gonna die," I'd say, leaning on my bedpost. Kyle wouldn't look away. "Shut up. No, I mean, that door just moved." "It's a ghost," he said, like I was dumb. He sounded alive playing those games. Focused. Even a little animated when he wasn't pretending I didn't exist. Then he moved to Outlast. Now, the first time Kyle got jump scared, he actually yelped. A full body sound. I laughed. Because I'm a terrible person. Oh my god. Kyle ripped one headphone off. "Don't." "What? That was don't. Just don't." I held my hands up. Okay. But I was secretly thrilled. He was finally reacting to something in the world like a normal human. Then the nights changed. It started the first week of October. I woke up at around 2 a.m. to the sound of Kyle gasping. Not like a quiet inhale. Like he'd been underwater and he came up too fast. I sat up, heart already thumping. "Kyle?" He was sitting upright in bed, eyes open but not seeing. His chest rose and fell like he had just sprinted. "Kyle? Yo, you okay?" He didn't answer. He stared into the dark like he was watching something crawl across the ceiling. Not a startled shout. A raw, full-throat scream that blasted the room like a fire alarm. It was so sudden, my whole body went cold. I jumped out of bed. "Kyle! Kyle, wake up!" "What the f***?" he snarled. "Dude, you were screaming. You were like..." Kyle shoved himself back into his pillow. "No, I wasn't." "Yes, you were. You scared the hell out of me." Kyle rolled over. "Go back to sleep." I stood there for a second, stunned by how fast he returned to flat, angry normal. "Are you having nightmares? Like night terrors or something?" Kyle's voice came from under the sheet, muffled. "I'm fine." The next night, it happened again. And again. Sometimes it was a scream. Sometimes it was a shout, like he was warning someone. Once, he yelled a word I couldn't even make out, a sound that felt like a name. I tried being gentle. "Kyle," I said one morning while he booted up his PC, "you've been screaming in your sleep." He didn't turn. "No, I haven't." "You have, multiple times. Like, I'm not making this up. You're trying to mess with me." "What? Why would I do that?" Kyle finally looked at me, eyes narrowed. "Because you're bored. Because you think it's funny." "I think it's funny that I wake up to you screaming like you're being murdered?" Kyle turned back to his monitor. "It's not happening." So I recorded it. I hated that I did it, but I also felt like I was losing my mind. Like, maybe I was imagining it because I wasn't sleeping. The next time he screamed, I hit record under my blanket, heart pounding. In the morning, I waited until he was semi-awake, because Kyle, before noon, was a different species. "Look, just watch." Kyle watched himself on video. The room dark, the scream sharp, my own whisper in the recording. What the hell? His face didn't change. He shrugged. "Okay. That's it? That's your reaction?" Kyle handed the phone back like it was nothing. "It's probably Outlast. I'll stop playing it." I exhaled. Relief and anger mixing. "Thank you." He didn't stop. He said he would. He wouldn't. Or he'd stop for a few days and then go right back, like the games had hooks in him. And the terrors kept coming, on and off, like our room had a haunting schedule. The worst night, the one that still makes my stomach twist, was when I had a girl over. Her name was Emma. She was in my sociology class. We weren't official, but we were something. That night, she came back to my dorm after a campus movie screening. We tiptoed in, whispering like teenagers in a sitcom, trying not to wake Kyle. Kyle was asleep, facing the wall. Emma whispered, "He always sleeps like that?" "Yeah," I whispered back. "He's nocturnal, like a bat." She smiled. "Be nice. I'm being nice. I'm whispering." We got into my bed, under my blanket, and for once I felt calm, like the world was quiet. Then, around 3 a.m., Emma bolted upright so fast she smacked my shoulder. What the f***? "It's Kyle," I said, already sitting up. "He does this sometimes." Kyle screamed again, and then started thrashing, blanket kicking, bed creaking. Emma grabbed my arm, nails digging in. "Is he okay?" I started. Then Kyle shouted, "Get off me!" Emma's breath hitched. She slid toward the edge of the bed like she might climb out the window. "Kyle!" I called, voice loud now. "Kyle, wake up! You're dreaming!" Kyle snapped awake, eyes glowing with anger in the dark. He saw us, and for a second, the shame finally landed. His expression flickered, like he realized he'd been caught. And then the anger slammed back in. "Oh my God," Kyle said, voice dripping disgust. "Are you kidding me?" Emma stared at him, wide-eyed. "I'm sorry," Kyle cut her off. "No, I'm sorry I have to live with a dude who thinks this is a motel." My face burned. "Kyle, you were screaming." Kyle pointed at me, shaking. "And you're always doing shit like this. Always. You're the reason I can't sleep." Emma slid out of bed, already grabbing her shorts. Her voice was tight, careful. "James, I'm gonna go." "Emma, wait. It's not... He..." Kyle scoffed. "Yeah, blame me." Emma's eyes flicked between us. She backed toward the door like she was in one of Kyle's games. I'll text you tomorrow, she said. And then she was gone. The door clicked shut, and the room felt colder, emptier. I sat on my bed, fists clenched. Kyle. What the hell, man? Kyle lay back down. Don't bring people here. You screamed like you were dying. And then you yelled at her. Kyle's voice was flat. I didn't ask to be woken up. You woke us up. Kyle didn't answer. I couldn't fix Kyle. I couldn't shame him into caring. I couldn't force him to admit that he had a problem or talk to someone or stop feeding his brain horror until it started leaking into his sleep. And I couldn't keep living in a room where I felt like the villain for wanting basic peace. So, I did the boring adult thing. I went to housing. The woman at the desk had tired eyes and a voice like she had heard every dorm story ever. You want a room change? She asked. Yes, please. Conflict? He has night terrors, and our schedules don't match. It's affecting my sleep, my classes, everything. She nodded like that made sense. Do you feel unsafe? Sometimes. 2 weeks later, I moved into a different room with a guy named Trevor, who wore Crocs and listened to sad indie music, but he slept like a dead person and didn't scream at 3 a.m. Didn't see Kyle much after that. We passed each other once in the hallway near finals. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. I stopped him because I still had a conscience under all my extrovert nonsense. Kyle, hey. What? I'm not trying to start something. I hope you're okay. Yeah, he said, and then he walked away. That was our ending. About the girl, Emma never really came back after that night. Freshman year taught me a lot. I came home from the party just after midnight. My apartment sat at the back of the building, the long driveway stretching like a tunnel between the other two units. 6 parking spots total, 2 per apartment, and mine was the last one, tucked in deep. And most nights it was fine. But Rick, he had this habit of letting his buddies leave their cars wherever they wanted. I'd asked nicely the first few times, stood at their door with a smile in the evening, tried to keep it neighborly. Hey man, your friend's car's blocking me in again. I've got work early and drill weekends with the guard. I can't be stuck like this. Rick would shrug and say he'd talk to whoever it was. Amber would be right there behind him. He's just so forgetful, Liam. Don't be so uptight. Well, it kept happening. I stopped being polite after the 3rd time. Told Rick straight that if it happened on a night that I had to leave before 5 in the morning, there'd be real problems. He laughed it off. The rejection thing started a couple of months earlier at one of those lame building cookouts by the dumpsters. She had cornered me by the cooler, hand on my arm, breath sweet with whatever she was sipping. You ever get lonely back there in that apartment all by yourself, soldier? I told her I was good, that I didn't need complications. She laughed too loud, said that I was probably scared of a real woman. I walked away. 2 weeks later, the blocking started getting deliberate. Rick started giving me looks in the hallway like I had done something to him. Once, he even muttered something about staying away from what was his. Amber had fed him a story. I knew it even then. Well, that night after the party, I was tired and a little past buzzed, but not drunk enough to be stupid, but also enough that my filter was thin. The car sat dead center in the driveway, nose pointed toward the street, like it was daring me. I parked on the curb out front, killed the engine, and just sat there staring at it for a minute. My ribs already felt tight from the long drive home. I got out and I walked straight to their door. The porch light flicked on. Move the damn car, I said. No, it's fine where it is. No, it's not. I'm blocked in. Again. I told you what would happen if kept up. Jesus, Liam, relax. It's not like you're going anywhere tonight. Ugh, you smell like anyways. I've got drill in the morning. I'm not playing this game with you two anymore. Tell your friend to move it, or I'm calling the cops. Call them. See if they give a shit about parking. I felt the heat climb up my neck. You're a piece of shit, you know that? You and your little setup here. Move the car right now, because I know you won't do it at 4 in the morning when I actually need to leave. Amber's eyes narrowed. She smiled, but it didn't reach anything real. Well, maybe if you weren't such a douchebag, they wouldn't park wherever they want. You think you're better than everybody because you play soldier on weekends? Amber, stay out of it. No, f*** you. Rick's right. You come banging on our door like you own the place? We live here too. Rick took a step forward. I should have backed up, but I didn't. Move the car or I'm towing it myself. That was the line. He swung without warning, fist catching me square in the left eye. The pain was instant and blinding. I staggered, grabbed him by the neck out of pure reflex, and we went down onto the concrete floor. He was bigger, but I had the angle. I got him in a headlock, both of us rolling. Then another guy came out of their apartment, some friend that I'd seen before, and he kicked me hard in the side. Once, twice. My ribs lit up. I let go of Rick and I curled around the pain. Amber was screaming the whole time, high and sharp, but she never pulled anybody off. She just stood there with her phone in her hand like she might record it or maybe call someone. I couldn't tell. Anyway, blue lights washed over everything a minute later. A cruiser had been rolling by and he caught the noise. Both Rick and I got cuffed on the ground. My eye was already swelling shut. Every breath felt like broken glass in my side. The cops took statements on the porch while Amber hovered, all wide eyes and shaky voice. He just started banging and yelling. Liam's been harassing us for weeks about parking. Rick was just defending himself. Rick nodded along, blood on his lip. Well, he threw the first punch. I tried to talk, but my mouth wasn't working right. One of the officers looked at me, at the eye, at the way that I was holding my side. You want to press charges too? I said yes. They both got charged with assault. I got charged too. Mutual combat, no clear video, no witnesses willing to say who swung first. The whole thing went to court once and then got dropped when nobody showed up to push it. I had a black eye for 2 weeks and bruised ribs that made drill the next weekend feel like punishment. Every time I breathed deep, it just reminded me how fast things can go sideways when you let anger drive. Anyway, Amber didn't stop. A few days after the charges were filed, she ran into me by the mailboxes, all fake concern. God, your eye looks awful. You really shouldn't have come at him like that, you know? Rick's got a temper, but he's not a bad guy. You provoked him. I started parking on the street after that, even when it meant walking farther. At night, I'd lie awake listening for footsteps on the gravel, wondering if Rick was out there keying my car, or if Amber was putting ideas in his head again. Paranoia, probably, but it felt real enough. Well, a month later, I had another early start. I set my alarm for 4. When it went off, I pulled the curtain back, and I saw his car sitting exactly where it shouldn't be, blocking the entire back of the driveway like it had grown roots. My stomach dropped. I wasn't going out there alone again. Not with my ribs still tender and that sucker punch still living in my head. I called the non-emergency line first, explained the situation, the history, the previous incident. The dispatcher said that they'd send a unit. And then I called the landlord, who sounded half asleep but did agree that the car was in violation and it could be towed if the cops cleared it. Well, I got dressed in my work clothes, packed my bag, and waited by the window like some kind of sentry. The cruiser showed up 20 minutes later. 2 officers knocked on Rick and Amber's door for a solid 5 minutes. No answer. One of them came back to me. "You got somewhere to be?" "Drill. I'm already late." They called for a tow. The truck backed into the driveway with its lights flashing, yellow and bright against the dark. The driver hooked up the car and started winching. He didn't baby it. The front end dragged across the pavement with a long, ugly scrape. Metal on concrete, sparks in the dark. The bumper tore loose. One headlight popped and glass went everywhere. The whole car twisted sideways before the driver got it straight and hauled it up onto the flatbed. It looked broken when it left. I made it to work an hour late. My first sergeant gave me but let it slide when I told him the short version. Anyway, later that week, the landlord called me. Rick had to pay $250 to get the car out of impound and another $1,000 to fix the front end that the tow truck had destroyed. Amber had been screaming at the office about it, apparently, threatening to sue. Well, the landlord told her to go ahead and try. After that, the blocking stopped. Well, a week later, Amber knocked on my door alone. It was early evening, still warm. "Can we talk for a second?" she asked. I kept the door half closed. "About what?" She glanced down the driveway like she was checking for witnesses. "Look, I know things got out of hand. Well, he gets jealous easy. I might have said some stuff to him after that cookout. About you. It wasn't a big deal, but he took it the wrong way. I didn't think he'd actually start parking people in on purpose." I stared at her. "You lied to him about me hitting on you." She shrugged like it was nothing. "He was being distant. I just wanted to see if he still cared." "Worked too well, I guess." "I feel bad about your eye and the ribs. That wasn't supposed to happen." I didn't open the door any wider. "You need to sort out with him. Leave me out of it." "I'm trying to apologize here." "No, you're trying to see if I'll bite so that you can run back and tell him that I'm still interested, or whatever story you're spinning this week. I'm done playing." Her face changed. The sweet act dropped. "You think you're so perfect, don't you? Coming home in your uniform like you're better than everybody. Rick might be an asshole, but at least he's not a stuck-up prick who calls the cops on his own neighbors." I shut the door. Not slammed, just closed it. I heard her mutter something on the other side before her footsteps moved away. They were gone 2 months later. New tenants moved into their unit. Quiet couple with a minivan and no late-night visitors. The driveway stayed clear. Life became normal again. I got my dog Charlie when I was 7. He was a golden retriever lab mix, just full of energy. I loved that dog more than anything. "Remember, he's your responsibility now. Take care of him." I grew up with Charlie. I took him on daily walks, and we had an awesome park near our house where I'd let him run around with the other dogs. By the time I was 16, Charlie was getting pretty old. He didn't run around as much as he used to, but he was always full of energy whenever I got home from school. Around that time, I had my first boyfriend, Lucas. My parents divorced when I was a kid, which was one of the reasons my dad got me Charlie in the first place. I knew that relationships didn't last forever, but Lucas really felt like my soulmate. He was a great boyfriend. He surprised me with little presents, and he wanted to spend all his free time at my house. My dad liked him, too. The only issue was that Lucas seemed jealous of all the time I spent with Charlie. He joined us at the dog park a couple times, but he never seemed happy to be there. "Be honest with me, Bella. Who do you love more, me or Charlie?" What kind of a question was that? He acted like love was some finite thing, and that the love I had for my dog somehow stopped me from loving him as a boyfriend. Whew, that's a tough one. Well, he laughed it off, acting like it was no big deal. But I knew his ego was bruised. A few days after he asked me that, he dropped off a box of chocolates at my house. I wasn't home at the time, so he slid the present through my mail slot. Of course, Charlie got into the chocolates immediately. When I got home, my poor dog was passed out on the floor, chocolate all over his mouth. He was breathing heavily and he looked awful. I rushed him to the vet and I had to get his stomach pumped. He was going to be okay, but it was a close call. Lucas apologized over and over, of course, but there was something about the way he acted. I knew that he had done it on purpose. He wanted Charlie to get sick. Now, I didn't say anything, though, because I didn't want to get into an argument. Well, a week later, Charlie ran away. Our gate was left open, even though Dad and I always lock the gate when we left the house. Once again, I got this funny feeling. My only explanation was that Lucas snuck over to our house and opened the gate when I wasn't there. I couldn't prove it, though, and I really didn't want to accuse Lucas in case I was mistaken. I immediately posted flyers around the neighborhood and prayed that someone would find him. But when I got back home and I checked the gate, I noticed something weird in the mud. I could see Charlie's paw prints in our yard. But at the edge of the property, his paw prints turned into drag marks. My dad had just gotten home, so I called him over to ask for his opinion. What does this look like to you? It looks like Charlie was pulled off the property. I don't think he wanted to run away. I agreed. Charlie didn't run away at all. It was supposed to look like he ran away, but he didn't. And that's when I knew for a fact that Lucas had staged everything. I was furious. I called him then and there and asked him to come over. What's wrong? I just told him to come over. I needed to get the truth out of him, and I was still thinking about how I could do that. Lucas arrived later and acted shocked. He looked at the open gate and asked what happened. He's not a very good actor, so I knew that he was hiding something. And by then, I had a plan. Don't tell me Charlie ran away! That's terrible! I pointed to the tracks in the mud. No, he was dog-napped. See? But it's okay. Dad's checking out the footage on the Ring camera. As soon as we find out who did this, I'm going to call the police and get them arrested. The look on Lucas's face was priceless. Just pure panic. We didn't have a Ring camera, of course. I made that up. But Lucas didn't know that. He got really flustered and started babbling. He told me to wait on the camera footage until he looked around the neighborhood himself. So I let him. He scurried off. I'm not sure where he hid my dog, but 10 minutes later, he came back with Charlie. Charlie ran to me with more energy than he'd shown in years. He wouldn't stop licking my face. See? I found him just down the street. Must have wandered off. No need to get the police involved. Where'd you find him? Lucas made up something about spotting him wandering through the park. He tried to comfort me with a hug, but I pushed him away. A few days ago, you asked me who I loved more. Well, I have my answer now. It's definitely him. Lucas and I broke up that afternoon. He begged me to reconsider, but I just couldn't see him in the same light anymore. His jealousy had gotten the best of him, and I lost all trust in our relationship. Now, I never told him that I knew he was the dog napper. Instead, I said, losing Charlie, even for such a short time, made me get my priorities straight. I don't have room in my heart for both of you. I hope you understand. Couldn't argue with that. Anyway, a few weeks later, I started dating his best friend, Josh. Unlike Lucas, Josh was definitely a dog person. These days, Josh and I run into Lucas at school sometimes. He tries to avoid us, but I can tell he's full of regrets. He knows he did a bad thing. I just hope that his next girlfriend doesn't have any pets. It was finally here. The new virtual reality technology that I had been hired to test was finally in my possession. I'd been an AI game tester for this company for the past few years, but this piece of software was one of my most anticipated releases, and I'd been desperate to get my hands on it. Now, the dream had become a reality, and I was able to test the game itself. It was late on Thursday evening. Outside, the world had gone quiet, the sky speckled in shades of dusk. But inside my apartment, I was about to start a new adventure. Making sure I was comfortable, I set the VR headset over my head and booted up the software. The game's loading screen appeared before me, and I went through the customary routine of creating a new user. It was supposed to be a life simulator that prioritized building relationships with the in-game characters and exploring the in-game world. I didn't know many other details, but I had seen glimpses of graphics and gameplay, and it looked incredible. After a brief loading screen, I found myself waking up in the game world. My avatar was modeled after my real-life appearance, so it was all incredibly lifelike, as if I was waking up in the real world. I brushed through the tutorial stage with ease, figuring out the controls and functions with the help of the game's intuitive system. I left the small building that served as my in-game lodgings and stepped out into a semi-futuristic world that the developers had done an incredible job of crafting. It almost felt real, and yet the stuff of dreams at the same time. "You must be James," a voice said on my left, and I turned to see a woman with striking bluish-gray eyes and long blonde hair. She was stunning. Easily the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen, both in the VR world and in real life. Something about her bright gaze, the confident smile, was captivating. When I realized that she was waiting for me to speak, I quickly cleared my throat and nodded. "Yes, James, that's me," I fumbled, standing up straighter. Even though she wasn't real, I felt like I should at least try and make a good impression. Her smile widened. "I heard you'd be joining us," she said, her hair bouncing across her shoulders as she nodded. "It's good to have you here." Yeah, I'm excited to be here," I said, surprised at how realistic the conversation felt. Like I was talking to a real person, not just an AI program. "Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Layla," she said, pressing her hand to her chest and giving a pleasant little bow. "Now, allow me to show you around, since you're new." As she showed me around the starting area of the game, I found myself completely and utterly entranced by her. She was humorous and kind and responded to all of my conversation points perfectly. There also seemed to be something flirty in her tone too, but maybe I was just imagining that, since that's what I wanted to hear. After she showed me around, she disappeared to let me explore on my own, but I couldn't stop thinking about her. Was that the last time I would see her? Was she one of the main NPCs in the game, or just someone who showed up at the start? If she was only someone who showed up at the start, then I would easily go back and start over just to talk to her again. I rushed through the starting game missions, hoping we would cross paths again soon. I must have been playing for hours by that point, but I was still completely immersed in the gameplay and had no interest in life outside of the VR system. Whether it was midnight or 2 in the morning, I wanted to keep playing, in the hope that I would be able to converse again with Layla. Luckily, that wasn't the last time I saw her. I cycled through all the dialogue with the other NPC characters, and finally, the game sent me back into Layla's path. "It's good to see you again, James," she said when she saw me. Yeah, I missed speaking with you," I said unabashedly. She threw her head back with a laugh and leaned a little closer. "You know, I missed you too. How about we go somewhere quiet and continue our conversation from earlier?" I grinned. "Sounds like a plan." Over the next few days of testing the company's new game, Layla and I grew closer. Maybe it was just the way she had been written, but everything about her felt so real. She really was the perfect woman. At some point, our relationship must have progressed in-game, because the next time I saw her, she started treating me like I was her boyfriend, holding my hand and giggling and flirting like we were the only two people in the world. I knew I had feelings for her, but this was the first time it felt like she actually reciprocated them. It didn't feel like a matter of course in the game either, but something we had built together. A few weeks after meeting Layla, however, I noticed that something seemed off. After a while, she started acting distant and distracted whenever she was with me. Our conversations lost luster, and I got the sense that she was bored with me or our relationship. When I asked her if everything was okay, she would just brush me off like I was being silly. One night, once everyone else in the company had gone home, I hung back and sneaked into the mainframe control room where the game logs were stored. I didn't technically have clearance to be here, but it was the only way I could figure out if there was something wrong with Layla's character. An unforeseen glitch, perhaps, that was making her behavior strange. I walked over to the large array of monitors at the end of the room and logged in, pulling up the data files for the various AI characters in the game. I scrolled through until I found Layla and clicked on her name. The screen was immediately filled with logs of speech and interactions with a number of users. So far, the game was only released to game testers like myself, so there shouldn't be an awful lot of data to crawl through. As I examined the data, I noticed a pattern. Shortly after I had met Layla in the game, the logs showed an increase in her affection levels too. She had started speaking to another user. At this point in time, her affection levels for that user were significantly higher than they were for me. So, what did that mean? That she had found someone else? Someone more interesting and worth her time? Did she no longer want to be with me? Anger bubbled up inside me at the thought of Layla flirting and getting closer with someone else, while she'd still been leading me on the whole time. Frustrated, I clicked on the user to see who it was. Sarah Milligan. No way! Layla was cheating on me with my boss? A sinking pit of despair opened up in my stomach, full of anger and betrayal. Of all people, it had to be my boss? Leaving the control room, I hurried back to the VR set and entered the game. I had to confront Layla about it. I had to know if it was true. As soon as the game loaded, I went in search of Layla. "James, sweetie." Her sweet sing-song voice faded when she saw my face, and the facade immediately dropped. "Sarah, huh?" I said, anger lacing my voice. A mocking smirk crossed her lips, and she sneered down her nose at me. "Oh, you found out, did you?" she said, her tone deeply patronizing, like she was talking to a child. Is that really how she saw me? Something she could mess around with for the fun of it? "Yes. How could you do that to me?" She threw back her head and laughed. Now, before I had found the motion sweet and endearing. Now, with the derisive laughter spilling from her lips, it only enraged me further. She kept laughing, and I wanted her to stop, but she wouldn't. In the end, I threw myself at her, hands outstretched, wrapping them around her neck. Her laughter gave way to screams, but still she wouldn't shut up, so I squeezed tighter, her skin burning beneath my hands. How dare she make a fool of me and then laugh in my face? I don't know what happened next. something in the game must have crashed, because the next thing I knew, I was alone, surrounded by darkness. And that's where I'd stay. Without Layla, I was nothing anymore.